Alright, Maras, how's it going? It is my pleasure to introduce you, the listeners of the Blue Army podcast, to our first ever official sponsors. It's Carlisle's #1 music venue. That's right, I'm talking about the old fire station Carlisle. Relive the 90s Manchester vibe with live music from the Happy Mon days and a DJ set from Clint Boone of the Inspiral Carpets. Happy Mon Days, the #1 tribute band to the Happy Mondays, bring you all the cult classics and best-selling hits of Manchester's #1 baggy band. And Clint Boone, one of the most sought-after club DJs in the country right now, will play your favourite hits on Saturday, the 23rd of April, and those tickets are just £15. This gig, along with hundreds more, is brought to you by the Old Fire Station Carlisle. To buy tickets for this and any other event, please visit www.ofscarlisle.co.uk. OFS obviously stands for Old Fire Station. One more time, that is www.ofscarlisle.co.uk. Get your tickets now. You can also get on all their social media links, Facebook, Twitter, and the rest of them by searching the Old Fire Station Carlisle.
My name's Chris Phillip.
My name is Paul Anderson.
My name is Mark Boyd, and you listen to the Blue Army podcast.
Hello, my name is Derek Combs, and I listen to the Blue Army podcast.
I'll just hit record. Yeah, but it was. I mean, hats off to Liverpool for the Carabao Cup final, obviously winning it. But yeah, I couldn't be doing with VR, so I think that's a nice place to open up, mate. I couldn't be doing with VR, so glad I'm a Carlisle fan, as you were just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. Right, we'll get things kicked off, mate. Obviously, we've got a bit more positive news to cover this week, so hopefully it'll just be a bit more fun.
Yeah.
And we've got birthdays coming back because we've got the birthdays back, so that's always great as well. And the joke of the week, I mean, we'll just see how it goes. Right. I'll get things started, mate. Alright, Maras, how's it going? And welcome back to the Blue Army podcast. This is episode 57, and once again I am joined by the Cumbrian Yo-Show sensation himself. It's Blue Army TV's Liam Denwood. Alright, mate.
You right, mate? How's it going?
Much better this week, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just missed the window, didn't we? We just missed the window by like 12 hours or something. I don't know. By the time I posted,
not even
episode, yeah, absolutely mental. I mean, I'm pretty sure we opened last week's episode literally by saying, "Don't see any light at the end of the tunnel," and boom! Somehow and some way, I mean, the shiniest light you could have ever imagined.
The biggest
power of
torch
1,000,000 candles. In the world. Sorry. As Rod Gilbert would say. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. Just amazing, mate. Absolutely amazing stuff this week. And I mean, we don't necessarily need any more extra good times and positive vibes because we're gonna have a great show already, I reckon. But because it is tradition round here, Liam, you know this. You've been here a few times. You know what the score is. You know what's coming next. It's time for the Blue Army podcast joke of the week. Is he having a laugh? I think he's trying to. It's the Blue Army podcast joke of the week. Bit more life in it this week, isn't there? Bit more life.
Bit more positivity.
That's it. I mean, just like you can just feel the energy, mate. You just feel the energy on this week's show. This is why I wanted to have you back, by the way. I just wanted to quickly mention, obviously, last week we would have just mentioned missed the massive news about Paul Simpson leaving. Me and you were on a bit of a downer, and I feel like you deserve to come full circle. And thanks very much, obviously, for coming back, so I can do that, because obviously, we didn't want to leave things on a down note, and since we got the opportunity to pick things up, it's lovely to have you back on. So this week's joke of the week is, why did Adele cross the road?
I think I'm trying to predict what the punchline is. I think I got what. Go on then. Why did Adele cross the road?
To say hello from the other side.
Yep.
Did you have it?
A lot better.
Yeah, man, mate. That actually took me, I think I stopped the watch at 20 minutes. 20 minutes. And mate, obviously when you find a joke like that, you're going to settle for it. So happy with that one. Time well spent this week. Definitely well invested. And let's keep the good times rolling, mate. And we'll plow on with the birthdays. I mean, my internet connection might not let me do it very quickly, but off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure this week's birthdays include Tom Taiwo from the past. Do you remember Tom Taiwo, Liam? Is that a little bit before your time?
Maybe a little bit before my time.
Tom Taiwo was a recruit from, he was a Chelsea cast-off. Yeah, to be fair, he was a bit of a Chelsea cast-off. He stuck with the team from the age of around, I think he was 20 when he stayed with the team. A very fiery bulldog, Kante-esque League One, League Two standard midfielder. Mate, it was a pleasure to have him around the team. I think he half or like through a granddad or something, Nigerian descent, and he was very nearly called up for an international cap around the same time. Lubomir Mikolic was in his international team whilst at Carlisle United. Also, who was the other international he had at the time? Peter Murphy would have been an international at the time. Also, Kieran Westwood, an international at the time. So we were raking them in, man. I'm pretty sure there's someone else I'm forgetting there as well with an international cap. The rest of the birthdays, this man, possibly, I mean, Liam, you're going to do an all-time best 11 for you personally later on in the show. This man, for me, I'm pretty sure I named him in my all-time best 11 whenever I did that. This is Zigor Aranalde, mate. You must know the legends of Zigor Aranalde.
I do know Zigor. He's been linked with the job when Millen came in. That's what I remember. Yeah, was he at Watford? Is that where he's at the minute?
Yeah,
something like that.
Backroom staff. Yeah, I believe so. He's been involved in coaching at quite a high level at the moment. Connections. I think he was at Valencia for a little bit as well. Yeah. So he's been around. And so he is rightfully so, sort of getting linked with the Carlisle job. He's not necessarily, going to be out of his depth in this. It may be even more favourable than your sort of Peter Murphy types and your Danny Granger types, because he's been at that higher level, and that recruitment book might just be that little bit more useful to a team like Carlisle United at the level we are. Moving on with the birthdays, current players. Now, a man who hasn't had the chance to redeem himself yet, but we'll give him a happy birthday anyway. We're talking about Brennan Dickinson, the left winger. He's 29 this week. And the reason he's not necessarily in the squad, it's also his birthday this week. Jordan Gibson is 24. Mate, out of the two of them, obviously Gibson being a new recruit this season, and maybe the reason Gibson was a new recruit this season is because Dickinson has never really got going, and we needed that threat out wide. I don't want to dwell too much on Brennan Dickinson. We covered him a lot last week, but Jordan Gibson, let's give him some credit where some credit is due. He's been one of the outstanding players for Carlisle United going forward in attack. I think he might be our top goal scorer. Not 100% sure, actually, now I'm thinking about it.
I think he's joint
top goal scorer, and that's not with a lot of opportunities under his belt. Most of his appearances coming off the bench, or sometimes he does get substituted off pretty early in games as well. So not the most amount of minutes under his game. So probably the best value for money when it comes from minutes per goals that Carlisle United have this season, you could say. So I'll put him on top of that chart, at least. Mate, it arguably, if Howard, wasn't as great as what he is, and wasn't a free as well, because that's a factor to a team, obviously, down at this level.
Yeah.
Gibson came with a little bit of a price tag. And I imagine if we sold Gibson as well, we wouldn't be getting 100% of that transfer revenue. Some of it would be going back to Ireland in one way or another, I would think, if they were smart enough to put in that kind of clause in his contract, his former team. If you were going to give if you were going to give Gibson a rating out of 10 as a signing this season, what are you going to give him, mate? And what comments and what improvements would you like to see from him going forwards in the season?
Well, I think he's scored 4 goals so far, which is the joint most with. I think Amari Patrick levelled it against Leyton Orient yesterday. But that's a tough one because
your defense is terrifying. He's on fire. Sorry, go on.
But yeah, it's hard to say because I think he probably should have got more minutes under Millen. But for me, give him a 7. 7 out of 10.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I mean, I'm a little bit more lenient towards giving him maybe like an 8 when you compare him to how everyone else has played so far this season. I'd maybe give him a little bit more just because of his contribution in the minutes per goals and just compared to most other people that we've got on the pitch. But like you rightfully say, I mean, if you're going to rate Omari Patrick out of 10, then if you're going to give Gibson a 7 and the sort of opportunities Amari Patrick's had so far, you guess a 9. It's been quite a good signing so far for Carlisle United, and hopefully we'll see more of that going forward. Now, obviously, that's the end of the birthdays. Thank you very much to the Carlisle United Be Just and Fear Not fan group on Facebook for that information. It's a lot of fun for us to go through every week and walk down nostalgia avenue. So I'm happy that's came back. Right. The big news has obviously been Paul Simpson coming back because Keith Millen got the sack. And I didn't expect for me to rhyme a bit there, but I did, and it was quite nice. I enjoyed it. Mate, it's huge. It's massive in terms of bringing back, just changing the attitude of the fans towards the football club. And also the big news that we obviously haven't talked about was the fact that David Holdsworth is also gone from Carlisle United. So maybe we'll cover the sort of like exits and then we'll go on to talk a bit more about Simmo. Your thoughts, mate, on Holdsworth going? It's great, right?
It is good. And I feel like that's been done as Millen's gone. They've gone to get Simpson, and Simpson's gone. I'll come back, but I'm not having that clown in charge. I feel like he's come and said. I genuinely think that's what it was, because I feel like he's a manager that needs to have a bit of control. And as much as I want to say he stepped down, I feel like that was one of the conditions of getting Simpson, where he wants to come in and like have control of all the, all the backroom stuff, all of that sort of. He wants to be the director of football and the manager, and he wants to have full control of the playing staff, which is what I believe has happened. But look, Keith Millen is another manager, and I think you can say this about pretty much every manager we've had, in the last few years, where you say Stephen Presley, decent guy, but wasn't good enough to be a manager. You say this about Millen.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, exactly, and to an extent, Chris Beach, he did have that good run of form. But he was more of a nice guy than an actual sort of good football manager. And I think the same can be said about Keith Millen, because I don't really have anything against him, personally. He's not like a Joey Barton. He's not somebody, you absolutely hate as a manager, but he is. I just don't think he was experienced enough. I think it's such a difficult sort of first job back. And I don't think he'd managed for a while before that, but it's just such a difficult job to come into Carlisle in a relegation battle. So look, I think he'll still have a good career maybe going forward. Maybe drop down a level, National League, prove it, come back up, be a manager. I can see him managing a Crawley or something like that in a few years' time. But the expectation here is a bit different. But yeah, it was definitely the right decision, and especially when you look at who came in afterwards, it was. And the thing is, with the results going the way they were, and I think a few fans weren't so happy with him. Comments about no negativity and stuff like that. And I feel like the fans had a bit of a he got on the fans' back. He got on the fans' back a little bit there.
Yeah.
And I felt he needed to go for his own good as much as the club. And you were on the radio speaking about it, I saw.
Yeah, my friend tagged me on something on social media. I was asked to just leave a voice note on WhatsApp, but no, it was great, man. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, just the two questions there. I think they asked me. What was one of the questions again? One of the questions was, and I'd like to ask you the same question: is what would you like to see from Paul Simpson at the end of the season going forward in an ideal world?
Ooh, you see, I with where they've got like a caretaker until the end of the season with a look to go into like, backroom staff afterwards as like a director of football thing. See, I'd love Paul Simpson to come back and be like our permanent manager for a good few seasons after that. But what I think is probably going to happen, and it's something that I noticed when they said in David Holdsworth's leaving statement, where they said we're not actively looking for a new director of football. I can see that happening as Paul Simpson, when it gets to the end of the season, maybe, he's had a long career in management. He's had struggles with his health recently. I feel like he's come back to try to steady the ship and then go into that backroom staff sort of role as a director of football. And look, the fans aren't going to turn on him the same way they turned on David Holdsworth, because he's such a fan favourite and such an absolute legend at the club. But at the end of the season, I'd love for him to be manager, but I think you listen to his interviews, he says, I'm not looking that far. And that says to me that he's probably going to, I think that's what's going to happen. I think he'll go into director of football or sort of work higher up at the club.
See, like, I agree with you on a certain level, but obviously I do like to run away with things sometimes, and you would think that the standard that Paul Simpson is, yeah, like you're saying, a lot of his experience in the recent years has been coming sort of in the backroom sort of area through Newcastle United, Derby County, Bristol City as well. But he did step up at Bristol City and caretake and sort of steer them towards a little bit of safety at his time there. And that's quite recent. That's only as recent as sort of 2001. 2021. And then obviously the England under-20s, where he went out and won the under-20s World Cup, which is it's a fantastic feat for any manager. I know obviously I've had my views on under-20s football, but that's more about the players that can just sort of pick up caps, because under-21s and different levels of football. A lot of people, maybe from a slightly younger generation, from you, some of the listeners out there might not know a terrible lot about Paul Simpson's sort of like history in the game of football. Obviously, he started his career at Manchester City, but this is not the Manchester City you know now. This is a completely different sort of team.
Yeah.
He really
before the takeover.
Yeah, way before the takeover, way before the Etihad, even before the stadium was anywhere near getting built, anything like that. We're talking about somebody who's grinded it out really in English football, really made a go of it, really made a career of it, and stayed in the game because he loves the game. You just feel like he loves the game. Recently, obviously stepping away because of health conditions, but he's got teams that he's obviously affiliated with in his time. Like, he played for Derby, and then he went on to go and coach there. He obviously has these certain loyalties and these links. He's quite old-fashioned in these ways in football, quite romantic with his relationship with certain teams within football, and that's what makes the bond between him and the fans so strong. I feel like because he's had this time away, he's also learned a lot about how to engage with fans, the social media. He's not a granddad, even though he is a granddad, he is an old man. He's 55 years old, not old obviously, but he's been around a long time, a lot of experience, and mate, I'm just buzzing to have him back at the club. That's obviously the big news this week for us here on the Blue Army podcast, and for any Carlisle United fan. Welcome back to the club, to the city, Paul Simpson. I'm going to be there on Tuesday night. I'm sure you're going to be there on Tuesday night. The game's already looking like it's going to get around the 5,000 mark, which is fantastic for a Tuesday night game under the lights. The atmosphere is going to be absolutely electric, and you would feel that, looking at our opponents, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun, mate. And it's two teams that are going to collide and really give it a god game. It's two teams that I've been very competitive. Looking more competitive recently. Obviously, we have turned it around more recently than they have, but obviously Oldham have had a good run of form recently, and it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great atmosphere, get hold of your tickets and come on down. Talking about getting hold of your tickets and coming on down, Carlisle United have just recently released the news that they are doing a £10 a ticket per adult ticket, £10 for the Northampton game, which is on the 12th of March. Just getting that news out there. So get your tickets, get down, support the club in these times. In other news, Liam, we spoke last week about the fact that Dan Hanford was gone as goalkeeping coach. Now we're obviously looking very quickly recruited again. So not only Millen gone and then a quick change around in manager, but Hanford gone and quite a quick change around in goalkeeping coaches. I thought with Mark Howard's experience that we might be seeing a little bit of him stepping forward into that role, maybe going into his coaching role. He's of that age, but no, Paul Gerrard joins us. Premier League experience. It on paper, mate, it looks like a really good signing, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's one of them names where I told my dad and he recognised it immediately as, you know, ex Everton keeper. But he's one of those ones where if he can translate that experience in like sort of coaching, it's a good appointment. But you know, you've seen with your likes of Stephen Presley, Keith Millens, you know, high experience as a player doesn't always translate to great coaching. But look, he has had coaching experience, and it's one of those things where now that Simpson's in charge and he's making the decisions, if he says it's good, it's good. You know, I believe him 100%. Whereas in the past, if Millen brings in a goalkeeping coach, I'm doubting it. But because you know, Simpson, I've got full confidence in him, and that's you know, it's what we needed from a manager. And Simpson says he's good. I believe he's good. And that's all that should be said. Trusting.
I mean, that's it. Simpson's gone out and backed him. Yeah. I don't think I was trying to just sort of look through some certain things. I don't think they've worked together before in football, but football being quite a small community in those coaching things, you get to know somebody quite quickly through their CV. And you'll ask around, you know, and when you need a goalkeeping coach, you'll bring someone in of that quality if they're going to apply for the job. And obviously he's applied for the job. So you're going to give him the bloody job because he's got great experience on his CV. So why not? It's another good decision, another great addition. And mate, very happy with that. Now, a bit more fun news, mate, is the fact that Carlisle United are also looking for a new home anthem. I mean, I like the old one. I like. Hey, you don't watch that. Watch this. It's Carla United at Brunton Park with the madness.
Yeah,
I do like it. You know, I do like it. But they're looking for a new anthem, mate. Now, off the top of your head, I know I'm putting you on the spot here. I haven't given the opportunity to really think about it that much, so that's why I'm rambling a little bit right now to give you a couple more seconds to think about something. But what do you suggest Carlisle United would use as a great entrance song going into this relegation sort of battle heading in towards the end of the season?
Well, I agree with what you've just said, to be honest with you. One Step Beyond by Madness. You know, that I've already put you know, they said on Twitter that the most liked reply would be like that's the one they'd use. And I cast my vote onto One Step Beyond by Madness. It's just that's sort of iconic with the It's an iconic song with the walkouts, and they haven't been using it as much in recent times. And I think it's a shame because it is a really good song, and it is one that I sort of, whenever I hear it, I think about Carlisle, just because it used to be that iconic walkout song. And look, in a time where they're trying to get the fans back into the stadiums, you know, remind fans why they like being at Brunton Park, reminded them of the good times, because that's what Paul Simpson's been brought in to do. As much as he's a good manager and as much as he does have experience, the board's obviously thought, we'll go back to what we did in the past, something that worked. We'll get him back in, try and revitalise, get a bit of nostalgia back. And I think if you're going to continue with that theme of like the good old days, get that song on. That yeah, that's my choice. One Step Beyond.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good.
Madness.
I like it, mate. I do like it. It reminds. It's been a while. It's been around a while. Sorry, what I should say. I remember Kevin Gray bursting out the tunnel to that song. So it is from that. It has been around as long as that Simmo era. It genuinely has been. It's a very old sort of anthem for the club. I mean, I feel like we used to use Chelsea Dagger by the Fratellis at the end of games back in the day, but I don't feel like a song with the name of another team in it's a very good choice for Carlisle United, really. So that would be a daft addition. What else do I like? I like some of Kasabian songs. Obviously, they've got their guitar riffs; they're quite good, but maybe a bit gimmicky, a bit on the touch. You know, some of them are quite good. But yeah,
There was one more that I saw.
What's that? Go on.
There was one more that I saw people suggesting. I'm just trying to find it on my phone here, and that I thought was quite good. See if I can hunt it down. Yeah. If the kids are united by Sham 69. That's that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, people were suggesting that one a lot, which I thought was good because the song ends with the United, that sort of thing, and I thought that was a good idea as well. There's a lot of suggestions.
I like that, man. I like that. So just quickly, before I moved, I just quickly glazed over the fact that Carlisle are charging £10 a ticket for the Northampton game on the 12th of March. But I did, interestingly enough, see somebody stirring the pot on social media saying, "Oh, what do the season ticket holders get then? Because they don't get cheaper season tickets." As a season ticket holder, Liam, I mean, what would you like? What do you want, mate? Do you want a fucking medal? I'm joking. Go on. Sorry. Go on, mate. What you said.
Well, it is a good point, to be fair to him. But there was a controversy a while ago where it was like I was speaking to some sort of older season ticket holders. I can't remember this, but I was having a chat about it a few months ago where they had another promotional campaign like this before, and it was everybody who buys a ticket gets like a free bit of merchandise or something like that. I can't remember what they were giving away. It was maybe a shirt or something like last year of the season sort of thing. But it didn't apply to season ticket holders, and so that season ticket holder thing in the past has been a bit of a problem with disregarding of the season ticket holders. Look, it's something to get more fans into the stadium, and as a season ticket holder, I can probably say I'm not really that arsed.
Okay.
Because it makes my experience better there being more people in there, so it is helping me as a season ticket holder as well, and it's helping the club, which is what I want at the end of the day. We already get like 20% off in the club shop and stuff like that, so yeah, if they want to whack on some free stuff for season ticket holder, I'm not going to complain, but it's a bit of a non-issue really.
Yeah, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I mean, I saw a couple of suggestions. Is that obviously you get a discount off your season ticket if you buy one again next year? I feel that's an easy fix to sort of resolve. If anyone does feel aggrieved, I feel like that would be an easy fix. Something very easy for the club to set up. Now, mate, we're going to move on to the match crack, and Carlisle United winning this week by 1-0 against Leyton Orient. It was an early goal. It was in the first 5 minutes. But before we dive into the match details, we start with the Carlisle United starting lineup for their game away at Leyton Orient. In goal, we had Mark Howard with Riley playing at right back, Feeney, Simmo and Armour making up the rest of the defence, with Gibson, Guy, Mellish and Devitt across the midfield, with Patrick and Dennis coupled together up front for the first time in their Carlisle United, starting a game for the first time in their Carlisle United careers, mate. All over the pitch, you've got to say, because of the injuries that we've had, this is Carlisle United's possibly maybe without Simmo, maybe with Whelan instead, Carlisle United's strongest starting lineup on paper. I mean, bringing Devitt into the team, pushing him out wide instead of making him central, just sort of gave the space for Mellish. Just to sort of like he was used wherever he was told to be used. Mellish, I mean, in some parts he was definitely a part of the defensive line, but there we have it. I feel like he had a very good performance on the day. Anyway, I mean, is the obvious change for you perhaps Whelan for Simmo, or were you correct last week when you said there might be something in Simmo's contract about him playing week in, week out, regardless of form?
Yeah, I think that is probably the case because I wouldn't have him in that back four. Even though we did play well and we looked a bit more solid at the back, he still makes mistakes. And even against Leyton Orient, where it was a massive improvement, there was times where Morgan Feeney was playing every position in the back four all at the same time. He's one of them players that this season, I would say, if you ask me now who my player of the season was, it would either be him, Gibson, or Patrick Gibson or Morgan Feeney, because he is that he's really covering for Simmo. It's something I noticed though. John Mellish was pushed back into centre back for most of the game. I felt he was playing as part of a back three with Simmo in there, but Simmo is one of those ones where if it is part of his contract, send him back. We can't be afforded. Yeah, exactly. We can't afford to, in the situation we're in, we can't really afford to have him there because a 1-goal lead is a really fragile lead, and all the hard work that we did in that game, it can all be undone in this league by a bit of inexperience and a bit of a mistake by the likes of Simmo. It's hard to say because I really don't know where I stand anymore in him, because I don't think Simpson would stand for a player out of form like that, and I think he would drop him for Whelan. But I think it might be in his contract or something like that. And if that is the case, then there's no point in us complaining about it because he's going to be in there till the end of the season.
Just come out and say it.
Exactly.
Rather than come out, they should just come out and say it. Then, if that's the case,
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, then at least we'll understand that we can just sort of get behind him, and then we'll just say, you know what I mean? The fans can sort of get on him in that way. Do you know what I mean? Because they know, do you know what I mean? At that point, and then Simmo's got the pressure of the fact that the fans actually know that. You have to play week in, week out. Sort your fucking act out, mate. You're not in the squad because you're training well. Potentially. I mean, maybe he does. Maybe he just is impressive in training. Or maybe, Carlisle's strikers are lazy in training, and that makes him look impressive in training. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Or maybe you're right, and there's something in his contract that keeps him in the starting lineup. I know Football Manager's not real life, but I do know that when you're offering contracts, there is an unused substitute sort of like clause where you have to pay a little sort of like fee if he ends up on the bench and he's not playing games and stuff like that. So I mean, I don't know if that would be a fact. Maybe that might be the thing, is the fact that if he does get benched, he's going to cost us more money, and so that's an incentive, I guess. But mate, Carl, like I said, Carla United opened the scoring very, very early on, and it was good, mate. It was really good. I mean, I wanted to see more of it, but we didn't get to see more of it. High pressing from Carlisle United led to Jamie Devitt picking up the ball, playing it into Dennis around the halfway line, who poked it round his man into the path of Patrick, who still had a hell of a lot to do against his defender. Magical run, little step over, then he jinks himself inside around the 6-yard box, finds that space and finds that bottom corner beautifully. Mate, you've seen the goal, surely. It's potentially, because of the limited goals we've got this season, one of the best goals Carlisle, anyone in the Carlisle United shirt has scored this season, bar maybe Patrick on another occasion a week ago, and maybe Gibson with one of his efforts from outside the area. Fantastic goal, mate, and just seeing the experience of Dennis, knowing when to sort of like just straight off, like offload the pass rather than sort of like maybe try and take control of it, look inside, slow the play down. He knows, he's taken on that instruction there. Nice to see him starting games and making an impact really early on. Impressive stuff from Omari Patrick, mate. Your views on the goal?
Yeah, it like you said before, it's the first time Patrick and Dennis have started together, and it showed that they do have that kind of decent link up, because Dennis, experienced player, it's a wonderful pass to Marty Patrick, and yes, there's still a lot to do. He puts it through the keeper's legs. It's a really good finish and a really good goal. It's very, very similar to the one he scored against Bradford, where he sort of ran with it for a bit. It was out wide, slightly wide of the goal, not through the middle, and he has to tap it either just to the side of the keeper or through the keeper's legs. It was really similar to the one he scored against Bradford.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's the experience of Dennis. Yeah, it's where Marty Patrick is best at them sort of goals. It was a really good goal, and it's something we haven't seen enough of. It makes him the joint top scorer. Well, to my knowledge, I might be completely wrong, but I think I'm right. But yeah, it's what we needed, and it's exactly what we needed to satisfy them 700 travelling fans to Leyton Orient. That was brilliant. It was just a brilliant goal, and we did well to hang on to it as well.
Well, that was it, mate. That was it. I mean, when the goal was scored as well, Patrick knew exactly where the fans were. He was straight over there, so they were very vocal from the offset, mate. Obviously, only 5 minutes in, so that support was loud from early doors. And from the little glimpses that I did get to hear over the top of the radio, I mean, you could hear Carlisle fans. You could definitely hear Carlisle fans, mate, and they were absolutely loving it. Now, after the goal, Carlisle can be accused of maybe taking their foot off the boil and just sort of focusing on protecting their lead, and there was a couple of opportunities with Leyton Orient going forward. Now, Carlisle might be able to consider themselves to be a little bit fortunate. Leyton Orient perhaps a bit wasteful. Paul Simpson liked to see it more as his defence being tireless, really, and is that just him stirring the pot as a confidence booster? Is he just being kind? Because I have to be honest, mate, some of the defending on the day was shambolic. Some of it was poor. And I'm not just talking about Simmo. There was an occasion where Simmo looked daft, but there was also, just before that red card, Feeney missed the header, and that was a bit sort of sus. That's a rarity that you'd miss a header off the bounce. Really mistimed it. But yeah, your thoughts, mate? Do you think the manager's just trying to save his players from any criticism there, maybe?
I think that is exactly what he's trying to do. I think he's just, as open and as vocal as Simpson is as a manager, he's not going to come out and say he's shit. It was his fault. He's not going to do that, is he? No. But I think there was one instance where Simmo sort of fresh air kicks it and it goes straight to their striker. He puts it just wide. I forgot. And it says a lot about our season so far, but I forgot what it's like to be in front and how nervy it is protecting a 1-goal lead. Because when you're 2-0 down, there's no nerves, is there? You've sort of accepted the result already. But when you're 1-0 up protecting a lead, you're sitting there absolutely shitting yourself, especially when Simmo was doing daft stuff like that. And some of the defending isn't great. But it's just, we got in front, and at this level, you're never going to get a game where the opposition doesn't get any chances. That's not, that's never going to happen at League Two. You need to, and because there's no striker in this league that's going to put away every chance. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in this league.
Yeah, so on fire. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you can afford to give them. I don't want to say you can afford to give them chances because that's wrong, but you can't expect them to shut out every single chance. And maybe be a bit chewed up with Simmo at the, toughen him up a little bit. But yeah, I've just some of his mistakes are stupid. That's all it really is. But overall, I think Morgan Feeney is our top defender at the minute, and he's so young.
Go with Simmo though. So is it a lack of experience? Is it a lack of interest on his part? Is it a lack of caring? What do you think Simmo's problem is? Is it a lack of concentration? What do you think his main issue is?
I think he's one of those players that looks brilliant in the under-21s. You watch his highlights, and in that league where you're not going to get pressed high, you're not going to get muscled off the ball, that kind of Premier League 2.
No one wants to get injured.
You'll get you'll get so much more experience playing in the Northwest Counties League than you will in the Premier League 2, because youth football is just so different. And I bet you anything he looks brilliant in training, where if you make a mistake, it doesn't really matter because it's just training, and he'll pull off brilliant bits of quality, but it's not, it's not completely consistent, and he just doesn't have the experience. And yes, playing for Carlisle is what's going to get him that experience, but for those sort of loan players, a team fighting for their life, that's not where they need to be. Simmo needs to be playing for Northampton, Forest Green, one of these clubs that aren't going to concede many chances, but he is going to get that, that physicalness of playing at this level. That's what needs to happen for him, I think.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, mate. But unfortunately, it's on our time, and it just seems to be like we've got the raw end of this deal. It does make more sense now because I keep thinking about this scenario that maybe he is getting paid. There is something in his contract that makes him play. That's maybe more why Millen went all the way down to Southampton to watch a Premier League under-23 games before he gambled that kind of money. For the club, maybe it was more to do with that rather than actually having a conversation with the player and making him feel okay. But obviously that's the ins and outs of football. Now, I do want to mention quickly, there was a good highlight for Carlisle United. It was nice to see Jack Armour back in the box in this game. There was a lovely cross from Jordan Gibson picking him out on the back post. Quite unfortunate, bit of a scuppered finish, but it's been a long time since I've seen Jack Armour bomb down the pitch and get himself on the end of a cross, mate.
Yeah, and it was one of those ones where it was like, I don't think he really had decided yet whether to cross it across the box or to have a shot himself, and so instead he did absolutely neither of them. But it was it's nice to see him even playing again, because he'd been dropped for a few games with Millen with that was it Mitchell Roberts coming in, another loan player from another example of them loan players coming in. But it's hard to.
Don't give up on loan players. Don't give up on loan players.
It's far too late. Yeah, no. Unless we get Callum O'Hare back, then yeah, no more loan players. I don't think, for me, anyways. But it's funny to think Jack Armour's still a really young player, and yet he's probably the most experienced out of that back line by quite some way.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, it will be by quite some way. Yeah, because obviously, I mean, before he was with us, he was with Morecambe for like a season where he was their first choice left back for a bit, and then he was. Tanner was at Salford,
I think that was Tanner. Yeah. Tanner was Morecambe. I think Armour came in. Armour came from Preston. Preston.
Right. Okay.
He was one of those ones. I don't think he had played at like a loan level, but it's just to see experience with Carlisle that has sort of done it. He came in from he was breaking into the first team at Preston at that time, and they decided not to renew his contract, so we brought him in. Yes, it's just the experience he's got with us over the last few seasons that's upped his numbers.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he's one of our most valuable assets as well. I think that's really important to point out. Is that like on paper as a saleable asset for the club if things got desperate one day? You know what I mean? He is one of the best sort of like young assets at the club. Like on paper, you would say he could command.
Oh yeah,
a
absolutely.
similar fee to sort of like what Tanner commanded like way back when at the start of the season. Now, I mean, yeah, so Carl ended the half quite brightly there with Jack Armour getting in the box for the first time in a long time, just lacking maybe a bit of ring rust, not having gone into that area in quite some time. Early on in the second half, there was an absolutely abysmal challenge by a Leyton Orient attacker that led to a second yellow card. The tackle was on John Mellish. Mate, have you seen this back? Mellish just gets up, like pushes the guy up. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Like honestly, he gets pretty much like taken down quite nastily as well. Like you've seen those. Like if Mellish's studs lock in the ground, which can happen on these occasions, that's a knee breaker. That's a shin shatterer. That's a terrible challenge. That's a horrible tackle. But Mellish just sort of like it just pushes him over, mate. It's fantastic.
It's that northeast stealing him.
Thankfully, yeah, you're right. I think thankfully because the referee made that decision that you were getting the second yellow and the red card, Mellish got out of dodge quite quickly after pushing over the man and didn't get a card. Didn't get a card on that occasion. Carlisle weren't absolutely hopeless. There was another opportunity going forward. This time Gibson showing good footwork, but mate, Carlisle looking like quite a counter-attacking team, you might say. but obviously you can't judge everything based on this first game. I would say going into next week that I would expect to see the same starting lineup going on tomorrow. I mean, we're recording right now on the 28th of February. So tomorrow night, Carla United play Rochdale. I would expect there to be the same starting lineup for that game, wouldn't you?
Yeah, unless he does decide to drop Simmo, which we've definitely discussed enough. But other than that, I'd
say it so
yeah.
much. We discussed it so much. We just agree with each other, though. That's
Yeah.
We're not even arguing over it, but we've spoken about it so much. Sorry.
But apart from that, it'll be pretty much the same lineup. Other than maybe in case there's injuries or something like that. Other than that, it's going to be he's going to pick the same lineup. I feel.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously it's a good game for Carlisle United. Lots of room for improvement. Paul Simpson mentioned that in his post-match interview. I think the most post-watch matched interview of the season so far. I mean, mate, the response on social media has been fantastic. Have you seen a boost in your match report after that game? Did you see a big jump?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It got a lot more views than sort of videos I've recently, because I feel like it's just been, fans aren't angry anymore, or they well obviously because they're happy now, but prior to Simpson getting appointed, in the Millen era, fans had stopped getting angry and started getting like depressed, a bit hopeless sort of thing. It was less anger at the board and more just sadness because it was all going so wrong and there wasn't an obvious fix. But I think this appointment, you look online, you look in, I'm sure the responses to the podcast, to my YouTube channel, just in Twitter in general, you look at the post-match interviews. I've probably watched that interview with Paul Simpson about 10 times now, just because I like listening to him. Yeah. But him as a person, the history he's got with the club, him being a local lad, it's like one of us is the manager. It's like one of the fans is at the front of the club, and it's just brought such unity back. In terms of appointments, they couldn't have, I've slated the board a lot, but they couldn't have done anything better. I think this is, unless they've decided to get Pep Guardiola in or something like that. Even then, I'd still probably have Paul Simpson. He's got the experience at this level. But no, it is exactly. the best thing. Yeah, it's the best appointment to make.
Absolutely fantastic, mate. Now, obviously, we're going to give a man of the match this week. We didn't do one last week. We kind of had a strop about it and bailed out. I'll go first, mate. I'm going to give my man of the match to the goal scorer. I feel like he was good at linking up play throughout the game. When Carlisle were going forward, yeah, he wasn't always the main focal point of attack, but he definitely had something to do with it, whether it was a run or just playing a 1-2 off somebody, or again, just making those aimless runs that just sort of spread the defence out. He's good. He's really good at doing that, especially down that left channel. And when he's on the ball, devastating. And the goal itself, being the winner, even though it was only within the 5th minute. Yeah, I'm going to give it to Omari Patrick, mate. Who are you going for?
Yeah, well, I haven't quite decided. I'm not even sure. I think Omari Patrick is just a League One player. You look at him and he's just a solid League One player. Yeah, but yeah, I am gonna give it to somebody else. I'm gonna give it to somebody else. I'm gonna go the rock of the defense, Morgan Feeney. That he's been such a good player recently, and he was, like I said before, at times he's playing every single position of the back four. He's just it was him and Armour really at the back. But look, he's grown into professional football so well, despite not having that experience. He's got the physicality for it. He's tall. He's not fast. He really isn't fast. But you don't often have to be at this level. Yeah, I think he's going to be a big part if we're going to survive. And I'm going to give it to Morgan Feeney.
All right, I think that's fair, mate. I think that's fair. I don't think he had a terrible performance, but obviously we do disagree on this occasion, which is absolutely fine. Before we move away completely from the match crack, I just want to point out the bench for the game. Magnus Norman again, sort of. I'm not sure what's going on with Magnus Norman. Maybe he's been allowed on leave a little bit. He was injured, but then he came back onto the bench and he hasn't really played. So I can't imagine why he'd be injured again. Not on the bench on this occasion. Gabriel Breeze on the bench, and four attackers on the bench: Louis Alessandro, Show Silva, Otomei, and Owen Windsor. Only with sort of like Roberts and Whelan there, so no real sort of like central midfield cover. I feel like we're in a position now where if we brought maybe a Taylor Charters back from loan, that'd be a smart idea. We need that sort of like option to maybe change things in and out of the midfield. And if there's not going to be recruitment in the free market, which is, I think, the only way we can recruit right now, unless is there an emergency loan option? Maybe.
No, that's gone now. I don't think that's a thing anymore.
Right. Okay. So it'll have to be sort of like I think it'll have to be a free agent before March 31st in that case then. And then the free agent market even closes for a couple of months until the actual transfer market opens once again. So I don't know, mate. I feel like Carlisle, looking at that bench with Windsor, Otomei, Show Silva and Alessandra, we could probably afford to let Otomei go back. I don't know if he's really shown enough, and I'd rather have Fishburne sort of like around that position, and that might just sort of like free up some things. We're stuck with Show Silva now. He's signed on the dotted line. Owen Windsor, I feel like, is quite lively out there on the wing. I feel like he's not done for us this season. I feel like he's still got games in him. If a man like if Devitt goes down injured, which is a possibility, he hasn't played a lot of first team football regularly, so if we rely on him to play a bunch of games, he might pull up a hammy and be gone for 2 or 3 matches. So we'll just sort of look. We do need that option out wide, so I'd like to keep Owen Windsor. Otomei would be the person that I'd maybe let go of in terms of loan options. I feel like Roberts is the only other left-sided left back we've got, so it's still worth sort of like keeping around in terms of squad depth. What do you feel, man? What do you feel? What would you change around? Would you bring anyone back from loan? Would you do you know what I mean? Looking at that bench, it's very limited in terms of options, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, with Paul Simpson coming in, I'm very surprised that Taylor Charters is still out on loan. He's I think he's proved himself as good enough to play at this level, and I think he's playing for Gateshead. He's starting games now. There was a period where he was on the bench, but he is starting games regularly now for Gateshead. Yeah. And I feel like, especially with him being youth player, Cumbrian, I thought Paul Simpson would have almost related to that and thought, I want you back. Maybe not to play every game, but to sort of, I want to see what you've got. I want to see what you can I want to give you a chance to prove yourself. Same with Sam Fishburne. I'd like to see him in and around that team, and you look at that. This is why I don't like the loan market, and because you've got these players of our own out on loan. Well, I like the loan system when we use it to send our loan players out.
It depends to what level, though, doesn't it? Like when a Sam Fishburne, like now he's back with the team, you wouldn't want to put him back on loan to Lancaster City again. You'd want him to go in at sort of like that National League level. And that sort of Mempala, sort of Weymouth, that bottom of the conference would be fine. Like that'd be absolutely fine. That kind of experience would be great for him. Far away from everything he knows. Not only would he grow as a player, he'd grow in his personal life, and maybe having Mempala there might be a helping hand. In fact, you know what I mean? The fact that they know each other might help, him settle in a bit faster. But sorry, you were saying about
example.
Yeah,
another example is Tristan Abrams. He scored the other day, top of the league, Grimsby. I think the top of the league. It's them kind of things, but. It's you look at the loan system and you think we've got Omotoye. He's not going to be here next season. He's not playing. Why not have Sam Fishburne on the bench instead?
Yeah,
because Omotoye, there's no point in being there.
No. I mean, it started really well, but sort of like players like that don't have a track record. Like we've seen it in players like Jermaine Beckford did the same thing. He turned up, he scored 1 goal, and then didn't score for like 7 or 8 games. And eventually he became a really good player and somewhere else. But we had to pay for it for those 7 or 8 games. We had no goals going in really, and then you have to scramble on the transfer market and try and bring somebody in that can score goals, because that was the person we were thinking was going to be our goal scorer. But in terms of Carlisle United's recruitment, I feel like Millen didn't do a great job. I don't know really. Holdsworth did a terrible job the whole time he was here. And the bench just looks silly. On paper, the bench just looks really limited on options. In terms of bringing players in and out and moving things along, I feel like Tristan Abrahams has gone. You mentioned Tristan Abrahams there. Tristan Abrahams has gone on loan purely for financial reasons. He is not good enough for this level, in my opinion. Really not good enough for this level. There's a number of players on that bench that I've read the name out of that I don't think necessarily are good enough for this level. But I'm going to give one or two of them an extra couple of weeks before I actually name and shame. But I mean, there it is, mate. I feel like that's purely a financial decision that Tristan Abrahams has gone on loan, and he'll be released at the end of his contract. Unfortunately for him, but there we go. Moving on to sort of like cheerier times once again. Obviously, Carlisle United winning that game 1-0. We're out of the relegation zone, mate, and things are looking quite nice. But when you look at the league table, what I mean, it's really sort of there's a lot of people that can get dragged. We've dragged Leyton Orient into that bracket now. Between Oldham underneath us and 30 points, going pretty much all the way up to Leyton Orient, there's only 3 points in it. And you might say, Walsall could be safe by now, but we'll see how it's going. There's lots of teams that can get dragged down, is my point. And I think I mentioned that to you a couple of weeks ago, if not last week, that I feel like it's important that there's more teams in the dogfight so you can sort of like claw yourself over more bodies. It's easier to claw yourself over more bodies, as it were. More factors. If you keep winning, there's more chance that you can end up in a much more comfortable position in 6 weeks' time, because there's just those bodies to climb over. If they're not there and you're only up against like one or two other teams, you don't really get that far away from the relegation zone in terms of like just crawling out of it. So, mate, it's all good stuff for Carlisle United going forward. Our next opponents are obviously this Tuesday night against Rochdale. By the time this episode goes out, though, it will be a Wednesday, so that game would have been and gone. We can quickly give some score predictions, although like we'll very quickly, the audience will instantly know if we were right or wrong. So I'm going to guess, because we're going, I'm going to guess we're going to beat Rochdale by 2-0, maybe 3 goals. So it's going to be a feel-good performance at Brunton Park for Carlisle United. What about you, man?
I'm not sure. This could be one of those things where, you cut off this bit in the podcast and editing. We refilm a little bit just after the match, and we put it back as if we've known all along. We're absolute mystic, people. But no, I think for me, I'm gonna go get a bit of consistency going. We'll win 1-0 again. That Brunton Park crowd will really help. Yeah, 1-0 win. I'll go for.
I feel like just not losing's important. At the end of the day, like just not losing's really important. Now, another big game on Saturday away to Oldham. Another team in and around this area at the moment, mate. That's going to be another huge game. Really looking forward to that one, mate. Like that's got surely we've got to do it there, mate. That's another huge game. That's a big game for us, right?
Yeah, I've got my tickets for that game. I've never been to Oldham, so it's going to be one of those ones. I've got a little map downstairs of all the away grounds in the Football League that I'm looking forward to crossing that one off on there. But okay. Yeah, it's going to be a good game. Personally, I don't think Oldham will be anywhere near the relegation zone come the end of the season, which is why, because they've got John Sheridan. John Sheridan to them is not quite at Paul Simpson level to us, but he is a club legend, and he is somebody that the fans will get behind. And they're in amazing form at the minute. I think in the last 4 games, it's been 3 wins and a draw, which has brought them above us, but then back below us with this result. And it was almost because they played Colchester when we were playing Leyton Orient, and it was one of those ones where if Colchester win, then we go out of the relegation zone, or if it's a draw, we go out of the relegation zone. But if Oldham win, we're still in the bottom 2. And I almost caught myself thinking, well, I think Colchester are a lot more chance of getting relegated than Oldham are, so it would maybe do us a bit of good for, in the short term, us staying in the bottom 2 and Colchester losing, just so that Oldham, who aren't going to be there come the end of the season, go up the league and keep Colchester within arm's length of us. it's crazy conspiracy theory, but yeah, look, it's out of our control. But yeah, Oldham, I'm looking forward to it. I'm just looking forward to going to what was a Premier League ground, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it's a nice place, mate. It's a nice place. It's all right round Oldham. Obviously, you've got Manchester not too far away as well, so there's plenty to do. And I just want to quickly mention Stevenage on abysmal form recently, really sinking down into this relegation battle. Those 34 games played as well, so most teams in and around this area have games on them. So it is more and more likely that they're going to start getting really dragged down into this battle. Obviously, only 2 points away from Carlisle, so not impossible to think we're going to switch a Rooney places by at least this weekend. Now, mate, for us to be able to end on a bit of fun, I suggested that we do your all-time Carlisle United best 11. You've had all day to think about it. That's it. That's all the time you've had. So I'm not saying it's going to be perfect by any means. I'm sure every single one of them is a heartfelt decision by you at the very least. But when we do these, it's very important for us to first establish what formation we're going to be using. So Liam, mate, what formation have you used for your all-time 11 Carlisle United team?
I've used a 4-3-3, and I should probably say it's called an all-time 11, but it's only really players that I've lived, I can remember that I've got sort of a connection with. So, you're not going to get your Alan Rosses or your greats from the 70s. Yeah, them sort of players. You're not going to get them in my team.
Yeah, that's fair. It's obviously you have more of affiliation for a player when you've seen them play. At certain levels of the game, there might be a standout or two that is really a club legend. So you would be tempted to put a Beardsley in your team, but I never. So because I never saw him play. So
no.
There you go.
Well, as well, you look at some of these old legends, under Paul Simpson. Paul Simpson took the Carlisle job in 2003. I was born in 2004, so a lot of even the semi-decent sides of Carlisle are below my time. In my experience of supporting Carlisle, it's been a lot of shit, if I'm honest with you. The teams we've had.
No, you've had Zoko. You had Zoko, right? You've had Jabbo.
Yeah. Well, even then, I still can't really. When was he in the team? Because I can't as much as I do like you. I haven't got him in my 11, but
no.
I remember slightly. It's not one that it's not one that I can remember vividly.
It's one of those hot and cold players, mate. And when he was hot, he was just unbelievable to watch, mate. It was just so entertaining. He could turn a game on a twopence. But yeah, mate, this is about you and your all-time 11. So we're going for 4-3-3. And you've just said there that this team's mainly consisted of players that you've seen play in the flesh. So it's going to be quite a recent team then. Because you're quite a young man, obviously. So let's get cracking with a goalkeeper. You've obviously only got one choice as goalkeeper. Who are you going with, mate?
It was a tough one because there's two names that came to mind. But I came with the goalkeeper. Whenever I think about him, I think of him saving a penalty against Felipe Coutinho. Because in that game against Liverpool, it's such an iconic thing in my head. It's Mark Gillespie. Currently at Newcastle, a brilliant goalkeeper in my time as a supporter. He obviously went on to do bigger things he's in the Premier League now. Maybe not starting every game, but I think he's got the capacity to do that. The other choice I had was Adam Collin.
Sorry.
Yeah. But I was for a while I was maybe going to go with Adam Collin just because I really like him and all that stuff he's been saying on Twitter recently sort of brought him into my mind. But Mark Gillespie, little ginger kid. He was a brilliant.
I've got fond memories of him. I've got fond memories of him, mate. A lad who I've interviewed on the Blue Army podcast before is former Carlisle United goalkeeping protege, who unfortunately didn't quite make it with the Cumbrians. A lad called Alex Mitchell. Mark Gillespie was the goalkeeper under him when Alex Mitchell was in the youth team. And so I play favourites. I like Alex more. I feel like Alex should have got more credit. He was good enough to keep Mark out of the team, but obviously managers come through, opportunities change, and players develop, and he really impressed in that season and started in that pre-season quite impressively as well. I remember, I think he was still at Trinity Sixth Form, which is a local school in the Carlisle area, whilst
That's
enjoying
Carlisle.
that pre-season at Carlisle United. So obviously, you know, a local lads in some senses of the word. He's a Geordie, I'm pretty sure, through and through, not really a Cumbrian. But there you have it, mate. Mark Gillespie is your goalkeeper in your all-time 11. So you've got your defensive line, mate. Where are you going to start us with? You're going to start us with a right back or a left back?
I'll start with probably the easiest first name on the team sheet, Danny Granger at left back. He just seemed an obvious one to me. You know, it was one of those ones where club legend, brilliant player, scored some amazing goals, brilliant defensively, great captain, probably one of the best players I've ever seen play for Carlisle. Yeah, Danny Granger, very easy. There wasn't really any competition for him either. Should we go centre backs next or the full back?
We'll go through your defensive line. Yeah, that'll be fun. Let's go centre backs. I have to say, Danny Granger, one of the all-time best free kick takers I've ever seen at Brunton Park. I'd put him in at least. Now so many people have came to my head. At least my top 5. You know, and maybe top 3. Yeah, top 3. Yeah, top 3 in terms of free kick takers at Brunton Park. Fantastic player, fantastic leader as well, and somebody that will, I think, forever be linked to the Carlisle United job for the rest of his managerial career.
So yeah, after that, I've got one that's very recent. That is probably a very controversial one, but I just thought he was far too good to play at the level he was at. He's currently playing at a league lower because of cash money. Aaron Hayden.
Okay, all right, that'll catch some people off, man. Yeah.
But he was just, and it was stuff he did in the community as well. He just seemed to absolutely love the club itself. You know, money calls, and you know, he offered to triple somebody's wages, and it's very hard for them to say no to it, especially going to play at what is going to be an easier league. But yeah, Aaron Hayden, he was in that run under Beach. You can't really ask for anyone better than him. Next to him in the defence, maybe a bit more of an obvious choice, Peter Murphy, you were talking about before. He's club legend. I've always got that image of him lifting the trophy at Wembley. It's easy choice for me.
Yeah,
Irish Republic of Ireland
Murphy,
international.
Man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like,
and
he brought great pedigree to the team.
Yeah. I've just realised as well, looking at this 11, I slate loan players so much, but there's 2 players in here that I've got in on loan. And right back, another more recent one. And I remember there was a game.
No, what guess? Go on. Sorry, go
on,
guess.
Right back. Guess.
You got Jerry Yates and Harper.
You've got one of them right, but I'll wait and tell you which one is right.
Oh, okay, cool.
At right back, I've got a more recent player as well, who is one of those ones that I think will go on to play in the Premier League. I genuinely believe that, and it's another really recent one from last season. It's George Tanner. You know, he was just such a brilliant player. He was probably. There was a time where I used to think our 2 fullbacks are more valuable than the rest of the team combined. You think of sell on value, him and Armour. I thought you can get £1 million off them. To the right back, you know, they're such good young players that I think sell on value. They're going to be, you know, they're going to go like hotcakes. You know, they're such valuable young players. And Tanner obviously did go to Bristol in the Championship. I think he's starting games there. I think he got injured recently actually, but yeah, George Tanner. He was one of those players that you didn't miss him until he was gone. You didn't realise how good he was until he wasn't in the team. Because as good as Miller has been at times, Senior's been good as well. But Tanner has always been the one he's got that quality, and yet he's about half the age of Miller.
You wouldn't have expected it with Tanner's background as well, like we discussed earlier there, not necessarily coming from the best of teams and not really getting the rub in the green there. He really stepped up his game. Chris Beach, I think, really proved himself to be a good manager with young players and getting them psyched up. But in the long term,
Yeah.
A young squad will turn on their manager in the long term. That's why you need the experienced heads in the locker room to also be helping you establish, the way that you want to play your football and certain just standards as professionals. Otherwise, eventually, young lads they'll just run amok. And that's just standard in football, really. Which is why your great teams that have been young teams also have your great leaders. Your Man United teams of the past with your Roy Keanes, etc., etc., etc. Mate.
So yeah, that's the back line.
Pretty decent back line. Pretty decent back line there. We'll go through them all again at the end. So now you're playing 4-3-3. We've already established that. Who is your midfield? You want to start with a winger?
A winger?
Oh, you're going
a winger.
Central. Okay.
Yeah, I've gone three central midfielders here in the 4-3-3.
Right. Here we go. Three central midfielders.
I'm going to go with the more attacking of the midfield three first, and that's one of my loan players, Callum Moore. He was the shining light, and he didn't play for us for very long, and he's not going to go down as a club legend or anything like that. But he was one of those ones where if you're picking for a one-off game, he just had quality. It was just a quality player. He was one of the best players under that dreadful Stephen Presley era, and he stuck out as one of the players that first name on the team sheet. We might be losing 2 or 3-0, but if anything's going to happen, it's going to come from him. And he scored some brilliant goals for us, and he just looked next quality. He's currently, I think he won Championship Young Player of the Year last season at Coventry. But yeah, I really wish we'd have got him back the season after on a free. That would have been a brilliant signing for us. But look, he was far too good to play at the level he was at. And yeah, despite my opinions on the loan market, here he is in my starting 11.
That's it. It does happen.
Next to him in the midfield is a bit more of a fan favourite, less quality. It's Jason Kennedy, bald, brilliant midfielder.
Okay. Yeah. Not a
terribly
long time with the Cumberland, but the Cumbrians, but he was one of those players that played with his heart on his sleeve, really, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, they're the kind of players I love, and you'll probably see that with the player I'm going to pick next to him in midfield. He just tried, and that's what got him where he was. I think he scored 11 goals for us. When I was researching these players prior to coming on here talking about my starting 11, I think he got like 11 goals for us or something like that in not so many appearances. He was a good player to have at the club, and I'd have him in that midfield. Next to him, a little bit less of a. This is when I was running a little bit out of ideas. It's more of a player. He's still at the club now. Not now. I wouldn't have. It's John Mellish, but not John Mellish from this season. John Mellish from that, John Mellish from that 3 or 4 months where he was scoring every game, because I think he's our highest scoring midfielder. Yeah, prime John Mellish. Well, also, yeah, well, so he's there. Yeah, against Newport.
There was no one better than him, really, was there, at the time? He was really setting the league alight in his time.
Yeah. And that brings me on to my front three. A very I was going to make a last minute substitution there, but I've decided not to. Start with the wingers. Derek Asamoah. Got to be on there, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, legendary goal against Liverpool. I mean, with that
purely for
job. Purely for that. What are your memories of him, man? I mean, is that it? Is that your go-to?
Well, that's my go-to, but obviously he had a bit about him, didn't he? And he was a really good player. And that goal against Liverpool, it's not so much the goal itself that stands out to me, but it's James Phillips's commentary going with that goal. I found it online a few months ago, and it was like, he starts shouting, "The cop is stationary, the cop is silent, Derek Asamoah." It was brilliant. The Anfield Road ends a wave of blue. It was a brilliant bit of commentary from James Phillips, and it makes me think of Derek Asamoah. Nice. And that brings me on to my next loan player, the one you guessed right yourself, and he's a player. It's Jerry Yates. It's a player that I think is probably one. I've seen some good strikers over the years, but I think he was so underrated. I genuinely think he was probably one of the best strikers we've ever had, because it was just when I think people didn't rate him as much as I do, because he was so clinical and he was so brilliant. And when we were trying to sign him, I was begging, just up the demand a little bit more, get him here, because I'd love him to come back to Brunton Park. And he's playing in the Championship, and he's playing well in the Championship now, and he deserves to be where he is. And it's a classic example of never fall in love with a loan player. And I think that's why I don't like loan players, because I fell in love with Jerry Yates when he was at the club. And I so wish he was back. And it scarred me. It scarred me with loan players, because now I just want him back all the time. Especially when we go on these long goal droughts, and you're looking at Luis Alessandro taking pot shots from outside the area, going over the stand. And I think I just want Jerry Yates back. Bring him back.
Yeah. Underrated player, yeah, absolutely. I feel like I picked him in the Football Manager draft that we did over the summer. I feel like he scored as well for us. But yeah, I mean, this is your last player now, mate. Your last attacker. Who you got to finish off your starting 11 with?
To be honest with you, this probably wouldn't. If you'd asked me this a week ago, he wouldn't be in the team. But because of his goal at Leyton Orient, I have just put Amari Patrick in there, just because. Yeah. Just for Leyton Orient, I thought just to keep up the good vibrations, I'll put Amari Patrick in here. Yeah, he's my other attacker. Absolutely, he's a brilliant player.
Yeah,
if he had a better touch, he'd be playing in the Premier League.
I mean, like, he's got the pace, he's got a fair bit of strength, like you're saying. It is a little bit of lack of dribbling ability, but he's still a young lad. He can still pick it up, and we've got him at least until the end of next season. So, good signing on paper, mate. Now, do you want to give us a recap, mate? Do you want to quickly just go through? This is Liam Denwood's all-time best 11.
We've got Matt Gisfield goal, a bar of Danny Ginger, Aaron Hayden, Murphy and George Tanner. In the midfield, in the more advanced role, Callum O'Hare, accompanied by John Mellish and Jason Kennedy, with a front line of Amari Patrick, Jerry Yates, and Derek Asamoah. Quality. They win the league. Deadly. They win the league easy.
They win the league. They win the league easily. Oh, man. The Masters League is apparently coming back, and you might see a Derek Asamoah or something playing for Carlisle in the Masters League. If we're lucky, you never know. You really never know with the Masters League. I'm buzzing to see if that actually does come into fruition, mate. And mate, I've been buzzing this whole episode, mate. It's been a lot of fun having you here. We've gone way over time because it's been so much fun, man. I'm really sorry if I've eaten too much into your evening, buddy. But we'll say goodbye.
No, you're all right, lad.
Oh, that's not very much. We'll say goodbye now to Summit, so we don't have to eat too much more of it up, man. So this has been episode 57 of the Blue Army podcast. This week I was lucky enough to be joined by Blue Army TV's Liam Denwood. You can find him predominantly on YouTube. I'm pretty sure you should know where else to find him these days. What was your Twitter handle again, Liam?
At Liam Denwood. That's the one. So they're the best two places for you, YouTube and Twitter. You do have other social links, and I'm sure you can easily find them on your various social medias just by typing in Blue Army TV. And mate, it's been beautiful having you here. Thank you very much for joining me. And there's nothing else for us to say really, apart from bye for now. Bye.
Alright, Maras, how's it going? It is my pleasure to introduce you, the listeners of the Blue Army podcast, to our first ever official sponsors. It's Carlisle's #1 music venue. That's right, I'm talking about the old Fire Station Carlisle. Relive the 90s Manchester vibe with live music from the Happy Mon days and a DJ set from Clint Boone of the Inspiral Carpets. Happy Mon Days, the number one tribute band to the Happy Mondays, bring you all the cult classics and best-selling hits of Manchester's number one baggy band. And Clint Boone, one of the most sought-after club DJs in the country right now, will play your favourite hits on Saturday, the 23rd of April, and those tickets are just £15. This gig, along with hundreds more, is brought to you by the Old Fire Station Carlisle. To buy tickets for this and any other event, please visit www.ofscarlisle.co.uk. OFS obviously stands for Old Fire Station. One more time, that is www.ofscarlisle.co.uk. Get your tickets now. You can also get on all their social media links, Facebook, Twitter, and the rest of them by searching the Old Fire Station Carlisle.